All I did was touch it. Always did say religion is dangerous.
G'day guys, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be showing you the Blood and Steel Witchhunter build. This is a build I've been working on since early access released, and I've been fine-tuning it to the point where I am happy with it now and I am ready to share it. It is a build based around armor breaking and proccing very large bleed damage. If that sounds fun, stay tuned. Below in the description field you will find timestamps as well as a link to a very detailed written guide that I have written up over the course of a couple of hours. Let's get started. Right. Our bread and butter abilities. We're going to be going over skills first and then passive trees, and then we'll touch on the gear. We have armor piercing rounds. This is a way for us to spread armor break debuff across many enemies all at the same time, as well as single target. It works just fine. This is the main way of getting that armor break debuff on the enemies, which we then use to consume to provide damage for our next two primary abilities. So going into a fight, we will send these bullets out and they will chain using the chain support to enemy units. This will then proc the additional break of 40% more armor, making them get the debuff of armor break incredibly quickly. I also applied the Life Thief passive to this skill just to make it a little bit easier to sustain our health. Every little bit helps. Now I will be going through these passives in order. So, Chain, Demolisher, and then Life Thief will be the order that I would recommend for the armor piercing rounds. Next up we have Flash Grenade. This is our primary use of AoE. This thing clears very well when it procs off the armor piercing rounds. It also causes us to go blind and adds a really cool light effect on our eyes. So, Flash Grenade provides a very large stun build-up, which means it can pretty much stun an entire pack of mobs, allowing us to pick off any stragglers if they do survive the initial blast. I have gone ahead and linked that with Scattershot first. Decreases the overall damage, but provides 2 additional projectiles, so we are firing 3 grenades at once, completely negating the 20% less damage because there is 3 of them. Next, I applied the Exploit Weakness. This is the major damage dealer for this ability. As long as the enemies have the debuff of the broken armor, this will proc, providing an additional 50% more damage, and it also has the ability to proc a bleed because it is a physical damage primary grenade. Next, I linked it to Ingenuity. This just decreases the cooldown, which allows us to shoot more often, which when it comes to grenades is very important because that cooldown can be an absolute pain. I've also added Discombobulate, which adds a day's build-up equal to physical damage dealt. It's not needed, but it is handy to have sometimes. Now, our primary single target damage is coming from the high velocity rounds. This thing is an absolute monster because it does already 468% additional, 468% attack damage, but when it's applied to a enemy that has broken armor, that goes up to 1060 at level 20. Absolutely insane amount of damage. First link I linked that to is Brutality, which removes the ability to do chaos and elemental damage with this attack, but increases the physical damage by 35%. We don't care about elemental damage, we don't care about chaos damage, we want that fizz. Next up, I added Execute. Supported skill deals 40% more damage with hits against enemies that are on low life. This is absolutely incredible when you're all bossing. With the moment they hit 35%, which is the low life level, they start taking 40% more damage from this attack. Next are 2 level 3 support gems, so you won't get them till a lot later, but we went with a Deep Cut, which is 25% less damage with hits. However, we get a whopping 75% more magnitude to bleeding, essentially larger bleeds, and that's what this build is all about. Next, we grabbed Heft, which increases the maximum physical damage by 30% for the maximum physical damage that this ability can do. Good stuff. Now we are on to our utilities. First utility I'd like to mention is the Emergency Reload. This is essentially just a very short buff that allows you to do more damage with whatever round is loaded. So you're going to want to load your single target high damage, and then you're going to want to pop this. This gives it a little yellow icon that shows that this is empowered right now. It will go away after a certain amount of time. And I've gone ahead and added the Empower support to it. That allows it to do 15% more damage. And we've increased the skill effect duration. Moving on to another utility. This is the Rip Wire Ballista. This thing is incredible when you are preparing for an attack, whether you're using strong boxes and maps and you want to pop it down to get it to get aggro of any enemies, because for some reason this thing taunts like crazy. Enemies can often completely ignore you and just go straight for the ballista if the ballista attacks it. Amazing stuff. I have linked that to Lockdown, which increases the pin build-up, which is nice, and to Ironwood, which increases the resistances by 40% on all elemental resistances. That means it will survive longer if it's getting pummeled. Now on to our spirit abilities. I would highly suggest getting Wind Dancer as your first ability, because it stacks up to 3 as long as you're not getting hit, and it gives you evasion rating per stage. Now the evasion rating will vary depending on the level of the gem, but this is a very large increase to evasion as long as we're not getting hit, and if we do get hit, it will proc a Gale Force. Gale Force is essentially just an AoE pushback effect where all the enemies around you will get pushed away. Amazing for survivability, and that's basically what we use it for. I would suggest linking it to Precision to increase our accuracy, and Vitality just to give us a little bit more HP regen during doubt times. Next one, when you can fit it, is the Scavenged Plating. This bad boy, no matter what level, will give you 3% more armor per Scavenged Plating. You get Scavenged armor when you break armor, and we do that very quickly and very fast with armor piercing rounds. So we are constantly getting in between 5 to 10 stacks of this, so 15 to 30% more armor at a time. It also has Thorns ability that does damage to things that hit you, but we don't really want to get hit, so we don't really take advantage of that too much. Now there is a ability up here that I did skip over because it is kind of one of the key points of this build, and we invest a lot of passives to support it. This is called Sorcery Ward. This completely negates all damage from elemental hits. Completely negates them. This doesn't work with round effects, only hits. But it will give you 30% of your total armor and evasion into this Sorcery Ward. That means currently without active buffs that I would have if I were into the maps, I have a 939 effective HP against elemental hits. So it will take out of this ward before it touches my health. This makes fighting bosses that have a lot of elemental attacks an absolute piece of cake. For example, some bosses shoot a flame at you with like a flamethrower ability. Yeah, that doesn't mean anything to us. It will just go out of our ward and we'll just keep on fighting. The major downside is that this minuses our armor invasion by 50%, which is where our passive tree comes into play. Let's go check that out now. I'm going to go in the order that I recommend you level, and then I will cover some later goals for the build. Obviously, I'm not level 100 right now, but I will show you what I recommend leveling towards. Starting off, we go down the projectile node and then go ahead and grab our first armor and evasion rating in preparation of grabbing our sorcery ward. Now this node here is more than enough to do you until a little bit later in the game. It's a decent boost in damage, so you won't notice lack of damage for very long. Battle hardened, another increase to our armor and evasion rating, always good. Now moving down here, this is one of the more important nodes that we need to get. This is the exposed wound node. This gives 15% increased chance to inflict ailments, which means bleeding, as well as any other damaging ailments, or even non-damaging ailments. It doesn't specify. So ailments, 50% more chance, which is what we want when we get to the bleeding node. The bigger thing here, though, and then one of the main reasons we grab it, is the break 30% increased armor on enemies affected by ailments. Now, the enemies are going to be affected by the ailments pretty much 100% of the time, which means we are going to get a 30% increased armor break on enemies, which is incredible. It allows us to tear through the enemy's armor and get those sweet boosts of damage from our grenades and our high velocity round. Moving down here, I would then suggest grabbing the next armor evasion node. This is backup plan. 40% increased evasion rating if you have been hit recently. 40% increased armor if you haven't been hit recently. Very good, because we don't want to get hit, and when we do get hit, we don't want to take a lot of damage. This makes that happen. Very powerful ability, and we want to grab that early on while we are not worried about damage too much. Next, we're going to grab all of the bleed nodes here. This will unlock a bleed ability for us. So up until this point, we will not be inflicting bleeds. We have to get these to unlock that chance. Now that we have these, we have a chance to inflict bleeding, and it slightly increases the magnitude of that bleeding. Next, you're going to start noticing that your damage is kind of evening out. You're going to want to invest in the two-handed damage node area. Funny enough, the crossbow is classed as a two-handed weapon, so gets bonuses from two-handed nodes. This whole tree here will give you so much damage that you will not be wanting for damage for a very long time. This is assuming you're keeping up with your gear and maintaining it to the level that you are fighting at. Over on the sides here, it does give us additional attributes, which is very important, but it also gives us 15% increased accuracy rating. This is very important because we are using flash grenades once they are unlocked, and because flash grenades blind us as well. Moving down to progress, we are going to go down here and grab all of these bleed nodes here. Now remembering this is the path that I would suggest you take these nodes as you are leveling. Go ahead and grab the aggravation, which gives you a 10% chance to aggravate bleeding on targets you hit with attacks. That's a good 10% just in general that you can cause aggravated bleeding. Now, those who do not know, aggravated bleeding is essentially the maximum damage a bleed could do, because when an enemy is bleeding, they have to be moving to get that maximum damage. Aggravated bleeding means they don't have to be moving to get that maximum damage, which is absolutely incredible. And it gets even better when we get deep wounds. Deep wounds make it so attack hits aggravate any bleeding on a target which is older than 4 seconds. The majority of the trash mobs, they won't last 4 seconds. But when it comes to bosses, this is absolutely incredible, because after 4 seconds, pretty much all bleeds will be aggravated. And that means any bosses that don't move will be taking the maximum bleed damage after that 4 seconds. Once you have this, you're going to start feeling really good about your bleeds. But it's only going to get better as we move on down to the next node I suggest getting. This just increases the magnitude of your bleed and also increases our accuracy against bleeding enemies, which again helps with our blind affliction that we will be inflicting on ourselves quite often. You also get a 15% increased attack damage against bleeding enemies, which is lovely to grab. Moving on up here, we just grab this node to increase our chances of inflicting bleed. Nothing too crazy there. Once you're around here, we are going to start feeling a bit of hurt when it comes to our armor. And because of that, we are going to start grabbing evasion and armor nodes. But before we do that, we want to go all the way up here, all the way up this arm, and grab deterioration. Damaging ailments cannot be inflicted on you while you already have 1 and 20% increased magnitude to damaging ailments. These also add chance, so we are increasing our chance to bleed and increasing our damage of our blades substantially. Now we have acquired all the bleed nodes that we are going to be getting around the mid game. I think you'll be around Act 3, maybe later around this point. So now you're going to be feeling the hurt. We are going to grab this circle right here next. Now the reason we grab that is because we want the extra armor invasion to increase our sorcery ward, and we want it to prevent us getting one shot by physical damage. Once we've grabbed this circle, we are going to come up here and grab a few more important circles. This is the 8% chance to evade melee attacks. That obviously stacks with Wind Dancer, as well as pretty much any other evasion rating you have, making the chance of getting hit in melee a lot less, which is absolutely lovely. And over here we have Defiance, 80% increased armor invasion rating when on low life. Now we've already discussed that low life is at 35% health. If you do get to that point, you're going to be taking substantially less damage, which obviously allow you to pop a heal and save yourself. Absolute lifesaver of an ability or passive. And moving on. Now you saw this node a little bit earlier, but this isn't a node that you should take early. This is a node you should take a little bit later, and I think this is the perfect time now in the tree to do so. We are going to increase the ability to break armor. The faster we break armor, the faster we can output our damaging abilities, and we are going to be going straight for cruel methods and then hitting the side nodes here. Cruel methods does break 40% increased armor, and it adds a 25% increased physical damage, which is amazing. I would suggest getting the physical damage nodes on the side first and then getting the armor break, because you'll notice the boost to the physical damage a lot quicker than you'll notice the armor break, just because a lot of the small mobs, their armor breaks so fast, you'll only really notice the improvement when you're fighting bosses with these armor breaks here. Around this point, you should be getting close to maps, if not already at maps. So what are we going to do to then increase our overall damage and clear speed? This is where the build amps up to be more critical based. We are first going to just grab the crossbow tree here. This will allow us to do more damage with our crossbows. It has a 15% chance to not consume a bolt, which is fun when it happens, but it's not really, you don't really notice it too much. But the big one here is full salvo. 25% increased damage with crossbows for each type of ammunition fired in the past 10 seconds. Because our playstyle requires us to switch between armor-piercing rounds and high-velocity rounds continuously during boss fights, that means this buff of full salvo will be up a lot of the time. Once we've acquired this, we are going to move down to grab Power Shot. Reduces attack speed, but increases critical damage bonus with crossbows, and the other nodes along the way add to our critical chance. Now we've delved a little bit into critical now, but we want to focus on doing more damage to rares. So we are going to grab these nodes here. The Giant Slayer. This increases damage against rare and unique monsters, and chance to inflict ailments against rare and unique monsters. So basically, against rare and unique monsters, we'll have pretty much 100% chance to inflict bleed, which is lovely. Over here, we have Cull the Horde. Now, you can leave this one to last if you would like. The reason being is because this will be linked directly to our final ascendancy point. So we won't be getting that for a very long time. You can leave that to last, but do still grab it. Over here, we are going to grab all the crit nodes, increasing our crit chance. And once we've grabbed those, we are going to finish off the build by going up here, grabbing the top row of criticals, and then grabbing the perfectly balanced knife, which is increased critical hit chance against bleeding enemies and 20% chance to aggravate bleeding on targets critical to hit. That is it. That is the basic passive trees. Now, moving on to order of ascendancy. Your first ascendancy, which you get from Sanctum, I suggest doing it at around level 40. 40? Yeah, do it around level 40 or 30. When you're comfortable doing it. Do Sanctum, get Sorcery Ward. Sorcery Ward is an absolute game changer. I had it before I versed the Act 3 end boss, and honestly, the Act 3 end boss was an absolute piece of cake because of Sorcery Ward. And the majority of his hits did not damage me at all. Next, with your Ultimatum Ascendancy, when the first time you get Ultimatum, you're going to want to grab the Zealous Inquisition. 10% chance for enemies you kill to explode, dealing 100% of the maximum life as physical damage. Now that 100% can also proc a bleed. It's insane, because that's a lot of damage. And double chance against undead and demons. Now those who have played at least a little bit into the game know there is demons and undead everywhere, being one of the most common enemy types. So the majority of the time you'll be running at a 20% chance for one of those to explode. That increases your clear speed absolutely insanely. Basically, once you got this, I had no issues clearing mobs anymore. Next, our third ascendancy, we are just going to grab the next step in our Sorcery Ward, which increases the effect of Sorcery Ward, and Sorcery Ward recovery is faster. Now, I am 90% sure Sorcery Ward is going to get a nerf just because of how powerful it is, but I still believe after the nerf it's still going to be incredibly powerful. At the moment, it is stupid broken. And finally, as I mentioned before, we are going to get Culling Strike. Because Culling Strike will allow us to kill things a lot faster, especially bosses. And that again ties in with this down here, called the Hordes. That is the setup for those. Let's go check out the gear. Now, I've just hit maps. I've managed to sell a few things and buy a few things. So we don't have amazing gear. I'm still using a gold rim to get my resistance cap up. And a couple of pretty shitty items. Just enough to get me to the elemental cap. But what you really should invest in, and this should be consistent from the start of your playing all the way up until end game, get a crossbow with the highest physical damage possible. And if you can, get one with a plus to level of all projectile skills. That is an absolutely incredible boost of your damage, and sometimes the plus to level will out damage the percentage of physical damage that the crossbow is doing. So you do need to weigh those options when you're looking for a crossbow to get, and I would just highly suggest using the trade site to do so. It is a lot easier, and especially when this build relies so heavily on that higher physical damage, you need to get a good crossbow. Also, later on, you're going to want to get ones with critical rolls. Like this one here has a critical damage bonus, but you can also get one with critical chance rolls, which will obviously increase your critical chance. Increased critical chance means more damage output overall, and that's what we want. With your armor, all you really want is to just get the armor and evasion ones. I'm just using an armor one here because it's all I could find that had the resistances I needed. But for the gloves, try and get one with really high armor. The reason for that is we are using this passive node down here, which I didn't really touch on too much. It is a +1 evasion rating per 1 armor on equipped gloves. So basically whatever armor you have on your gloves is then doubled and converted into evasion, which is lovely. This is the other one is just 8% of evasion rating is extra armor, which these bounce off each other, which is amazing and good stuff. What else? I find the utility belt really good because 20% of blast recovery applied instantly can be a lifesaver when you're getting hit hard by poisons. I generally always have a poison charm equipped at all times when I can, but I carry around some rare increase ones when I'm doing maps without poison. I also have a bleeding one in case there's a bleed modifier as well. It's good to just keep things on you. That's about it for gear. It's nothing too crazy. It's what you expect. Focus elemental resistances first, then focus life and defenses. Defenses are very, very important because we take a lot more physical damage. Now I'm going to go run a map and I will show you guys how it plays. Hopefully we don't die and this doesn't become incredibly embarrassing. Let's go here. I just have a level 1 map because I have just started on maps. I only just completed the first map quest. But so far things have been very, very easy. Make sure you load your... At FPS. Make sure you load your armor-piercing rounds in first. Spread it out to the enemies. Throw down a grenade and everything explodes in a pile of gore because they're bleeding. Pretty straightforward playstyle. As you can see, we can kill quite a lot pretty fast. Any stragglers, we'll just change over to our high velocity and finish them off. Because we are tanky enough, we can group up the enemies for the explosion. That's a cross that just appeared there. That was, and again, that was the Zealous Inquisition ability, exploding with 100% of their physical damage. Pretty crazy stuff, and I love it. And of course, these guys are undead, so they have a 20% chance of that happening. For the heavy guys like these, I just like to break them and then use the high velocity round. This takes them down quicker than the grenades will. And a lot of the time you can just walk through even if the enemies aren't dead, because the bleed procs, as long as they're bleeding, they're gonna die. So these guys didn't get hit, but they're dead. Obviously, this is just a tier 1 map, but as you can see, I'm already incredibly overpowered for what this is. So at the moment, we can definitely do higher tier maps. I just don't have access to them at this time. As our build progresses, we will be able to do a lot more. Oh, I just switched to armor piercing. Why am I using grenades on this guy? Now let's break their armor, switch over to high velocity, and just hit him. There we go. He'll die. Wait, he's not bleeding. Oh, the proximal tangibility ability gets me every time. You gotta be close to do damage. It's super annoying. But yeah, for chunky boys, I just bring out the high velocity round. And it does pierce up to 6 enemies, so you can use it as a, just to line it up. Look at that. Didn't even use my high velocity. Oh, now I did. And he bled all the way to almost dead, just from the grenade. Good stuff. This is essentially the playstyle. I will have a... you would have seen a video, well, a recording of fighting just a basic boss at the start. Oh, look at that guy. So much armor. But now without the armor, look at him die. The more he moves... Yep, there goes the armor. There goes the bleed, rather. So, bleeds last a total of 5 seconds. Can increase this, but it's really not... It's not worth the investment, because the only way to increase it would be to get into some fire nodes. And that's just kind of pointless. As you can see, we're just kind of just cruising. It's a very cruisy build, and it's a very powerful build. And for those who love the bleed mechanics in the Path of Exile series, this is definitely for you. Definitely for you. I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate your time. And as I said before, there is a very detailed guide in the description below. Please check that out, and if you have made it this far, please like and subscribe. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you. Bye bye.